presentation and try to be as, not as loud as possible. So we're going to ask everybody to put your phones, no, put your phones on mute. Hey, put yourself on mute, please. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christy, and I am the Director of Programs at Alzheimer's Services, and I am welcoming you to our second workshop for making sense of sense in caregiving. We're going to learn more about Social Security and Social Security disability, which I can say just my brief experience with it can be puzzling. And so we have Miss Maria Alvarez, who's going to make it less puzzling for us and answer some questions that we have. So just to give you a little background on Miss Maria, she is a public affairs specialist with the Social Security Administration. And she has many years of experience in Social Security, and she has a compassion for helping others. And so we are so happy to be able to have such an expert to teach us more about Social Security and how to maneuver better through it, right? All right, so thank you so much, guys. If you have any questions, I want to just share with you, please add them to the chat box at the bottom of your screen. And after the presentation, we'll go through each question, and Maria is going to do a wonderful job at getting you a little closer to your answer, okay? All right, thanks so much, Maria.
Thank you, Christy. And it's always a pleasure to be with you all. Alzheimer's Association has a warm spot in my heart, not just because of great people like Christy that I have the pleasure of knowing and working with, but because I was a caregiver to my father, who suffered with Alzheimer's for an incredible 13 years before passing. So it's always a pleasure. And yeah, my objective today is to make this all a lot easier to understand, and of course to answer your questions. If there's anything in the presentation that hasn't been covered, it'll be my pleasure to answer those questions for you. So let's go ahead and get started. Ellen, if you could go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, perfect. So Social Security disability is twofold. We have Social Security disability and we have Supplemental Security income. Social Security also has other benefit plans. The retirement survivor, benefits for dependents, even for dependent adult children, for spouses, divorced spouses. Today, we're going to concentrate first on Social Security disability, meaning the difference between Social Security disability, the program where you work and pay into the system to become insured, versus Supplemental Security income, which is a program run by the Social Security Administration, but it does not require the individual to have worked and paid in to the system. So a lot of children, for example, qualify for Supplemental Security income, and a lot of individuals who have been disabled since birth qualify for SSI because, of course, they may not have had the opportunity to work and pay into the system. So it's an amazing program for those who have not been able to work and pay in. Some people qualify for both benefits. Depending upon the amount of a person's Social Security benefit, they may be entitled to some SSI also. So for example, SSI pays a maximum federal benefit amount of $783 a month. So if an individual has a Social Security check, but it's fairly low because maybe they were not able to spend a whole lot of time in the workforce, probably due to a disability, they may be able to get that Social Security check if it's under that $700 or so and get a little bit of supplemental security income. So it's exactly what the name implies. It's meant to be a supplement to any other income you have. But we do look at income and resources for that program. So let's go ahead and go on to the next slide. The first thing we need to talk about when we talk about Social Security disability is the definition of disability for Social Security benefits, because we have a specific definition of what's considered disability. And that definition may not be the same as what other organizations consider to be a definition of disability, or what your doctor might consider to be the definition of disability. With Social Security disability, it's mainly tied to the ability to work, the ability to perform work, and it's also tied to the severity of the condition and how long it's expected to last. All those things come into play. So in order for an individual to qualify for Social Security disability, they must have worked and paid into the system, but they also need to meet the medical criteria, which we admit it is a strict definition of disability. A lot of times we define Social Security disability as a benefit of last resort. In other words, when you've exhausted, for example, disability benefits through your work, if you have the ability to have that in your work plan, it's not the same definition as, for example, unemployment compensation, that type of thing. So you have to have a condition that is severe, that's lasted or is expected to last at least 1 year or more, or result in death. The condition must prevent the individual from doing substantial work, work that he or she has done in the past, and it must prevent the person from adjusting to other work. So what do we consider substantial gainful employment? Well, we have assigned a dollar value to that. So if someone comes into our office and says, I would like to file for disability, I have this condition that's really given me some problems, I'm struggling to go to work, but I am still working. What we ask is, well, how much are you still grossing? If the individual is grossing this year in 2020, the value of substantial gainful employment is $1,260 a month. So if you're earning at least that amount, it's considered substantial, and your request or your application for benefits would be denied based strictly on what you're earning. In that, Social Security considers it to be pretty much the amount that a non-disabled individual could be working and earning to maintain themselves. So this is often a predicament, because a lot of times people are still, by the grace of God, holding on to that job, although they are struggling. But unfortunately, like I said, if the individual is earning that amount or more, the application is denied basically on the ability to work, because remember, that is an important part of the definition of disability, is the inability to work. And by the way, we just received the substantial gainful employment amount for next year. It doesn't go up by a whole lot. It's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1,310. So it doesn't jump up tremendously. But just to give you an idea of how we look at a person's situation when they are alleging a disability and the inability to work. This all changes once you are approved for Social Security disability. The actual limits and the consideration that's given to work loosens up a lot. And the reason for that is that we want people to be able to get back to work if they're able to do so, and try to get back to work without immediate adverse effects. Okay. Next slide, please. So, just to review, SSDI, or Social Security Disability, will provide a monthly benefit to people who have worked and paid into the system. You have to have worked enough time. It does not pay temporary or partial benefits. For example, for VA disability, you have to have a certain percentage of disability. With Social Security, we don't look at that, okay? For people who, like I said, cannot perform substantial gainful activity, or that $1,200 or so a month of earnings, and you must have a condition expected to last 12 months or more or result in death. If you're younger than your full retirement age and you earn less than substantial gainful activity, you may be eligible for the benefit. But you must have recent work. And we're going to talk about the number of credits that you need depending upon your age. And we're going to talk about full retirement age, because a lot of times we have people who are disabled, but they're also close to retirement age, either early retirement or full retirement age. And they're often confused. Well, do I file for disability, or do I just go ahead and file for my retirement? And I'm going to tell you a lot more about that when we get there. Next slide, please. So supplemental security income, just to review, because there's a lot of confusion as to these two types of disability programs within Social Security. It is a disability program. The same disability criteria must be met as for Social Security disability, but the added caveat to SSI is that you have to meet certain income and resource criteria as well. So you could say it's an assistance program, because remember, it's not a requirement that you have paid in any money to the Social Security program. We require that you meet the disability criteria, however, and that you meet income and resource criteria. And we're going to talk about that in a moment too. So people who are 65 and older can qualify for SSI simply based on the fact that they're 65 or older and meet the income and resource criteria. So they don't have to be disabled if they've reached age 65 and have no other income, or like I mentioned earlier, they may have a Social Security check, but it may be quite low. Anything lower than that $783 a month could potentially entitle them to some SSI in addition to the Social Security retirement benefit. So you might be wondering what the income and resource criteria is for SSI. Unfortunately, it's quite low. In Louisiana, the SSI income criteria mirrors that of Medicaid. And Medicaid is a state program that provides insurance, medical coverage for people with very limited income and very limited or no resources. So as far as resources, an individual cannot have more than $2,000 in resources, meaning bank accounts, property ownership. For example, let's say you own a piece of property or a home, but you don't live in it. If you live in it, it's excluded. that does not count towards the $2,000 limit. But if you have additional property out there or any other form of resources that are $2,000 or more, that automatically disqualifies you for SSI. Now, if you're married, you have a spouse, you live with that spouse, that limit jumps to $3,000. Okay. As far as income is concerned, if you have any unearned income, meaning, let's say you get that Social Security check, or let's say you get a VA benefit, anything of that nature, any other benefits, if it's over $783 a month, generally speaking, that will probably disqualify you for SSI. So, like I said, the eligibility criteria as far as income and resources is pretty strict. Like I said, pretty much like the Medicaid Louisiana guidelines. As a matter of fact, the income and resource criteria is so similar that if an individual qualifies for SSI, meaning that we approve them for SSI, the state of Louisiana automatically grants them Medicaid benefits. So the criteria is the same. They pick up the approval off of our computer system and they automatically send the individual that Medicaid card, which can be used along with Medicare and most other insurances that an individual might have. Okay, let's go ahead and go on to the next slide. I like to provide a side-by-side comparison of both programs so that it's fairly apparent what the basic differences are in both programs, because like I said, it can be very confusing. But as you can see, on the left-hand side is your Social Security disability, where you've worked and paid in. The right-hand side is SSI, where you do not need to have worked and paid in, but you have to meet that income and resource criteria in addition to the disability criteria, just like with Social Security. The other thing about Social Security disability is that because it is a program where you work and pay in, your dependents are potentially insured if you are insured. With SSI, only you are entitled to a benefit. So if you're getting SSI, you have unfortunately no Social Security eligibility, just SSI. If you have dependents, they are not insured on your record. They cannot get a benefit check or insurance coverage because you're getting that coverage. So it is an assistance program, and it's just for the disabled individual or the recipient, because like I said, we could have elderly people 65 and older getting SSI also. With SSDI, if you qualify for Social Security disability, or if you qualify for Social Security retirement, and you have a minor child, meaning they are under age 18, or if they are 19 and still in high school, they can't be 19 and already in college. They have to be 19 and still in high school. They are entitled to receive a benefit check on your record. The reason is that you were the breadwinner, so to speak, for that dependent. If you lose the capacity to work and provide for that dependent, Social Security acknowledges that that's a need for that individual. And the reason it stops at age 18 is because by law, you're considered an adult at age 18 and supposedly no longer a dependent, although anyone who has kids in college know differently. But as far as Social Security is concerned, their benefit does stop at age 18, or it continues if they're 19 and still in high school. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So let's talk about retirement versus disability. Okay, for retirement with Social Security, you must be at least 62 years of age, and you must have at least 40 credits earned, and that could be at any time in the past. Sad to say, we spend 30, sometimes 40 years in the workforce. So within the first 10 years of you working and paying into Social Security, you're probably insured for retirement. The more you add in, the higher you're adding to your benefit amount. But as far as getting your foot in the door, as far as you being in the ballpark of qualifying for a benefit, you're in. The more you continue to work past those initial 10 years, you're basically building up your benefit amount. So if I work and pay in for only 10 years, yes, I'm eligible for a Social Security check, but it's going to be somewhat low, as opposed to someone who does spend, the required or the usual, I should say, 30 or 40 years in the workforce. Okay. Now, let me preface this by saying that when you come in to file for a benefit, you don't have to decide whether, I think I need to file for retirement or disability. If you are 62 and you've been diagnosed with a disability and you come in and you say, look, I think I'm going to file for early retirement because I've just been diagnosed with this really bad condition, or I've had this terrible injury that's keeping me from working. What we're going to do is take not only a retirement claim, but we will also take a disability claim from the individual. For disability, you can be any age. The required amount of credits is a little different depending upon the age of the individual. But if you're over 30 and filing for Social Security disability, generally speaking, you're going to need, definitely need 40 credits, but they must have been earned in the past 10 years prior to you becoming disabled. So you have to have a recent connection to contributions to qualify for Social Security disability, to have those points or those credits. By the way, we also call them quarters. The new official terminology is credits, but it's quarters. It's the usual quarters or points that most people refer to them by. So if somebody comes in over 30 years of age and they say, I don't know if I'm eligible for disability, we may say, well, have you worked at least 10 out of the past 10 years prior to becoming disabled? If they say, oh yeah, I've worked full time up until now, they'll probably have the credits that they need. The beauty of the Social Security disability program is that it adjusts the number of credits it requires depending on a person's age. And that is beneficial because you may have a young person who started working, had no idea they would become disabled at age 24, but because they are so young, they have not been able to work and establish those initial 10 years under Social Security paid employment. Let's say they were in college up until age 22. So they've been in the workforce for 2 years. Catastrophic illness or injury. What happens? Well, because they are a young individual with very good intentions of meeting their credit criteria, Social Security only requires about 1.5 years of contributions prior to that disability if they're that young. So this is good information for you to take home to your young adult children or grandchildren. A lot of times people like to work under the table. They're getting a lot up front, but are you building up protection in the case of a disability? If you're not working and paying in, you're not. You have SSI to fall back on. However, that pays a maximum this year of $783 a month. Consider what your life would look like if you have to live on just $783 a month. Okay. It's certainly not enough for it to be an incentive for you to not want to work and pay in. And that's something that, my agency does outreach, not just to individuals, nearing retirement. We do outreach to college age individuals so that they are aware of this type of information. A lot of times I'll go into a college and I'll set up my little table with my information table with my Social Security tablecloth, and they look at me like I have 4 heads because they're like, why is she here to talk to us about retirement if we don't even have a job yet? But if I manage to get them over to my table and I explain this type of thing to them, then their light bulb goes off in their head and they're like, oh, okay, I see why this is important to me too. It's not just a retirement program, it's a disability program. So great information. I hope that you share that with your loved ones. So I hope that clears up the differences between these two disability programs. I like to make it very clear because a lot of times an individual may not have had the opportunity to pay in, and they are not aware that we do have another program that can assist them if they were unable to pay in for some reason. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so at age, if you come in between age 62 and your full retirement age and you're disabled, like I said, we're going to take both a disability application and an early retirement application. The amount of disability that Social Security pays if you're approved is equivalent to what we would pay you had you not had a disability and you waited until your full retirement age to draw retirement. So at 62, Social Security allows you to file for retirement, but it's considered early retirement, meaning you don't get as much as you would get if you waited till your full retirement age. And I'm creating a big mystery around this full retirement age. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about this because it's different for each of us, but that's the point at which you draw 100% of the benefit that you're due according to what you worked and paid in, the number of years, and the salary level at what you paid in. So Social Security would start paying you an early retirement benefit and also submit a disability claim to you for you. And if you are approved eventually for disability, Social Security will pay you, switch you over to disability and pay you a higher amount than you were getting under early retirement. It would pay you the equivalent of your full retirement amount. The reason we do this is we want to start some type of payment for the individual. We don't want to not pay them anything. Obviously, they are in need of income, and we know for certain that they are eligible for early retirement, but we don't know if they're going to be approved for Social Security disability. So we start that early retirement, and then if they are approved for disability, we switch their payment to Social Security disability, which, like I said, is equivalent to what they would be receiving at 66 or 67, whatever their full retirement age would be. And once again, even if you forget I've mentioned this, we will bring this up at the interview, or if you submit an application online and we see that you're 62, but you're also alleging a disability, we will do the same thing. And the reason for starting you off with that early retirement amount is that making a disability decision can sometimes take about 3 months, and we don't want to make you wait 3 months without any income. There are some exceptions to that delay in or the time that it takes to get a disability decision that we're going to talk about in a moment also. But generally speaking, it can take that long. The state agency that makes the disability determination has to request medical information and do a whole lot of stuff that takes a whole lot of time. So next slide, please. So as far as full retirement age, this is what I was promising to show you. It depends on your year of birth. So for some of us, it's 66. For some of us, it's 66 in a few months. I always say this is the one time it's not the best to be the youngest person in the call, right? Because for people born 1960 and later, it's 67. So for any one of us, we always have the option of taking, retirement early, or any time between 62 and full retirement age. What happens is that if you take it as early as 62, it's about a 25 to 30% reduction, and it's a permanent reduction into what you would get if you waited till full retirement age. So, people ask me all the time, what's the best thing to do? I can see that I'm getting less money, but I'm getting it 4 years prior to what I would be getting it if I waited. So, well, is the glass half full or half empty? There is no one best answer that we can give you. If you speak to a financial planner, they will tell you it's best to wait and maximize your benefit as long as you can. And the reason for that is that we spend so much time in retirement these days because we're living longer. But some people say, hey, I have severe heart concerns in my family. I fear that I'm not even going to make it to full retirement age. I'm taking it early. That's as good a reason as any, if you ask me. But, it depends on an individual's particular situation. I venture to say it depends on a person's philosophy of life, Are you a person to say, no, I'm taking it as soon as I can. Nobody can guarantee me I'm going to make it to full retirement age. And some people say, oh, no, I'm going to maximize this check. I'm going to wait as long as I can. And that's a perfectly good answer too. The good thing is that Social Security provides benefit calculators and estimators on our website that helps you make these decisions if you don't have a disability that's a component of why you're looking at disability. If it's strictly retirement, get your estimates on our website, and that might help you make your decisions. You may see your estimate at 62, and you may be thinking, well, I don't want to take it as early as 62, but I also don't want to wait as long as my full retirement age. I want to take it somewhere in between. When you get your benefit estimate, you see what that amount might be, and you may be comfortable with that amount. Other people might say, oh no, I like what I see at full retirement age. I'm not taking it early, even though I thought I was. So an informed decision is what we recommend. But other than that, it is an individual decision based strictly on your particular situation. Next slide. So some other facts that I want you to know about that I get a lot of questions on, and that's why I think it's important to mention here, is that if you are approved for Social Security disability, once you reach your full retirement age, you don't have to do anything, because remember, the amount Social Security is paying you is equivalent to what you would get at full retirement age anyway. Okay, so there's no change in your benefit amount. If you are already receiving Social Security disability or retirement, and you have a new diagnosis, that would not change your benefit amount either if you've already started a benefit amount. So those are some questions that I get frequently that that I thought you might want to know. Next slide, please. Let's talk a little bit about how to apply for those benefits. These days, with the coronavirus situation, our offices remain closed for in-person visits, but our offices are open by phone to file for benefits or for any other reason that you need to contact us. Our offices will make an appointment for very limited situations, such as a person needing a first-time Social Security card, a person who's never had a Social Security card. We will make an appointment for them to come in, because that requires an in-person interview for security reasons, for identity reasons, etc. But just about anything else that you need to transact with us, we can either help you by phone, and you can fax in whatever you need if you need any documentation, but you could also file online for benefits very, very easily. I always like to say that if you use our online process on our website, you're not alone in knowing, what you're qualified for and who else is qualified on your record. Leave that up to us. The only difference is you're choosing to provide your information to us through the internet instead of in person. A human pair of eyes that's qualified at the Social Security Administration will review your online application for benefits and let you know if there are any other entitlements for dependents or for yourself that you need to know about. We ask you for your phone number, we ask you for your email address if you have one, and we communicate with you once we review your application and we see anything on there that we need to talk with you about. I always say, a lot of times people think that we're very nosy at Social Security because we ask a lot of information, and a lot of times people say, why do they need to know that? But the reason we need to know is because we're looking for potential entitlements for you. You may not know that you might be eligible on a divorced spouse's record and get a little bit more money than what you might get on your own record. It's not likely, but it's possible in some situations. So that's why we ask you, who are you married to? What's their name? What's their date of birth? Do you know their Social Security number? Because we want to look and see if you're entitled on that record. We'll ask, how long were you married to them? Because all those things matter. Don't fear using the online application. It's so convenient. You can take your time and enter your information. And like I said, it's processed in the same way. And we contact you if there's anything on there we need to talk to you about. I mentioned that If you have a disability, a qualifying disability, but you're also at least 62, but you submit just a retirement application because you didn't know you could also file for disability, you don't have to have known. We will automatically ask you, we see you're filing for disability for retirement, early retirement, but do you have a diagnosis of a disability that keeps you from working? If you indicate that you do, we will know that this also serves as a disability application for you for the purposes that I previously mentioned of getting you some income ahead of time and then sending your information for a disability decision. You could file for retirement, spouses benefits, disability, or Medicare online. The one thing you can't file for is survivor benefits. Let's say that if your spouse passes away, you want to file on their record for benefits, or you want to know if you're eligible. We do recommend that you call us for that purpose. You can schedule a phone appointment by calling our 1-800 toll-free number at 1-800-772-1213 number. They can answer a lot of questions for you, set you up with an appointment, anything like that. Any questions you have, that's a good number to call. Next slide, please. Okay. When should you apply for disability? That's another question that I often get. The answer is as soon as you become disabled and you acknowledge that you have a condition or disability that's keeping you from working or doing substantial work. If you are still able to work, but only part-time and you're grossing less than that $1,200 somewhat dollars a month, you can file a disability application. Contact us. Processing an application can take at 3 to 5 months, at least 3 months in some cases. We may be able to process the application a lot faster if you meet certain disability criteria. We can fast track the processing depending upon that condition or illness that when you file for benefits. So we automatically look to see if we can fast track your application depending upon the condition or the illness that you indicate you have. Next slide, please. So what I'm talking about as far as fast tracking conditions, we call these compassionate allowances or compassionate processing, meaning that it's a quick way that we identify certain diseases and conditions or illnesses that will probably be approved, that we have enough information on that we know are going to meet what we call our listing of impairments. What that is the criteria for conditions that, according to Social Security disability guidelines, the person will meet. So we can basically target the most obviously disabled individuals that are filing for benefits and move them to the front of the line, so to speak. We get a lot of applications for benefits that going in do not meet our criteria. You may have heard it said that it's very hard to get approved for Social Security disability. It is, because we have a strict definition of disability, and a good percentage of the claims that we receive don't qualify, don't meet that criteria. Just let me give you an example. I may have an individual who had a severe injury, car accident or injury at work. They broke their hip, they broke their leg, and they go online and file for disability benefits. It's a serious injury. They're not able to work. However, it's pretty much a temporary condition. Remember, the disability definition for Social Security says that it has to have lasted a year or more, or is expected to last a year or more, or end in death. So for the most part, a broken leg, a broken hip, you could probably, with physical therapy, et cetera, it's assumed that you will probably be back at work before a year is out. But like I said, people don't realize that going in, or they say, I'm going to file anyway. Well, that's what a lot of times causes backlogs in the system. We can't discourage anyone from filing if they truly feel that they're disabled and unable to work, and if they think it's going to last a year or more. But that's what sometimes causes a lot of the delay, because remember, we have to get all these medical records and see or prove that it does not meet our guidelines. So, you know, we do fast track conditions that we can tell are serious conditions that are going to last. Or are expected to end in death, unfortunately. So we do have a process in place. The compassionate allowances, it's a list of over 225 conditions that qualify for fast tracking. Early onset Alzheimer's disease, meaning that if you're diagnosed and you're under age 65, is considered a compassionate allowance. So you will get a decision back as fast as within 30 days, sometimes even quicker, if we're able to get your medical information that proves that's your diagnosis. There are some other conditions that are listed on the Alzheimer's Association website. These include Lewy body dementia, mixed dementia, adult onset Huntington's disease, ALS or Parkinsonism dementia complex, frontal temporal dementia or FTD, Pick's disease type A, primary progressive aphasia, or progressive supranuclear palsy. And I apologize if I didn't pronounce any of that correctly, but just to give you an idea. But most definitely, it's great to see the Alzheimer's diagnoses on there. So what this means is that if you or your loved one wants to file for Social Security disability, and that is your diagnosis, your decision will come within 30 days, if not sooner. So that is something that I'm very proud to work for an agency that has those types of concessions for these types of conditions. And like I said, there are many others listed on our website if you're interested in seeing what these are. Or for example, if you have a loved one that may have another type of condition that you're wondering about, go on the Social Security website, www.socialsecurity or SSA.gov. You can type in /compassionate allowances. But if you're on our website and you remember us talking about this, just type in the search engine compassionate allowances and the list will come up. It's quite extensive, like I said, but the illnesses and conditions on there are severe conditions. So just FYI there. Next slide, please. So what happens next? You've decided to go ahead and file for disability benefits. We're going to request information about your condition. We're going to ask for the names, addresses, phone numbers of your medical sources, where your diagnosis was made, who made that diagnosis. We're going to ask about medications you're currently taking. All that goes to what we call our Disability Determination Services, or DDS, and it's a state office that's made up of doctors and other individuals that have been trained in medical conditions and medical illnesses, and also trained in the Social Security criteria for disability. And they are the folks that will make the disability determination for us. So the people at Social Security are not trained in the ins and outs of the disability aspect of the determination. The people at the Disability Determination Services are. They're the doctors, they're the disability certified specialists. We know the ins and outs of whether you have enough credits. We know the income criteria for SSI. We know a lot of that stuff, but we don't get into the medical specifications and the listings. And if you meet that, that is made by the Disability Determination Services. So what we recommend that people do is to give us a good product when you complete that application and that medical disability report. Make sure, if we ask for full name and address and phone number of that medical source that you're going to list, do your best to find that out for us and give it to us. If you don't, I mean, we will go the extra mile and we will try and find the address and a phone number or an email address for Dr. XYZ. If you just listed the name Dr. XYZ and you did not know the phone number or the address, we will try, but sometimes we may not find it. Sometimes we have people, unfortunately, that come to us and say, oh, it's Dr. James and he's downtown, but that's it. That's all they can provide. That's a little bit harder for us. So please try and get us that information if you can. All the faster we can go ahead and request that information and look at it and make that decision for you. They'll consider all the facts, and they are also the ones that will fast track the decision. If you meet that compassionate allowance, it's fast tracked automatically through the Disability Determination Services Office, and they let us know as soon as a decision is made. So just some FYI as far as how things work behind the scenes, and what's happening while you're waiting patiently for a decision from us. Next slide. Next slide, please. There it is. Okay. So, what if you disagree with the decision that's made? If you get your decision, but the decision letter says that we acknowledge that we understand that you have a disability or a condition or an illness, but unfortunately it does not meet the criteria for Social Security benefits. It may also say it's because you're working and earning over the substantial gainful activity limit. It may say your condition is expected to improve in a time period that's less than a year. It may give you some additional information like that. But if you disagree with whatever that letter tells you, you have the right to file an appeal, and you're given 60 days to file that appeal. Now, please don't wait 60 days. If you disagree with the decision and you think that you do have a qualifying condition that, and you don't disagree with what that letter is telling you, file your appeal as soon as possible. All the quicker we can get back to work on reviewing that record, requesting updated medical information, and sending you a new decision. I also recommend that you go ahead and file an appeal if you have the slightest hesitation as far as did we make the right decision or not. Whether you think you should be approved or not is what I mean. A lot of times, it takes that 3 to 5 months to get a decision. And what I'm talking about is conditions that are not considered compassionate allowances. That back condition, that someone might have, for example. It may take 3 to 5 months, but in that time period, the person's condition may get worse. So we encourage people to not become discouraged. If it's a situation where you're aware that your condition has gotten even worse, by all means, file that appeal. We will get updated medical information, and we may have a different outcome the second time around. Some people also say, oh, you got to file at least 2 or 3 times before they approve you. It's because usually the condition may not have met the criteria at the first application, but the condition did progress and get worse and eventually met the criteria. So think about that as far as appealing. Also, a good reason to appeal is that if you're approved down the line after you file your appeals, sometimes we can go back as far as your initial application to pay you back pay. Sometimes we can't. Sometimes in the example I described a little earlier, where your condition may not have met the criteria because it wasn't expected to last, or it wasn't severe enough at that point, well, they may say, well, we can pay you not back to your initial application, but we can pay you back till X month. And you will get some back pay, even though it's not back to your initial application. So that's a good reason not to become frustrated, not to file an appeal, and just to file a new claim, because it can only go as far back, if you're eventually approved, as your latest application date. Okay, so don't get frustrated, put everything aside, and then a month or 2 down the line, your condition does become worse. But if we can pay you back, we can only pay you back to that latest application. Appeals can be filed easily online also, and it's the same process. It's still reviewed by a human pair of eyes at the Social Security Administration. We call you if you miss putting some information on there, or there's anything we need to talk with you about. We will call you and get that from you, so you're not alone in your filing your appeal either. Okay, the appeal can take sometimes 3 months, sometimes it could be more, depending on the backlog that our state agency has. Sometimes you file your first appeal and then it goes to an administrative law judge. That can take even longer. But for the purposes of what we're discussing here today, and keeping in mind that a lot of these are going to be compassionate allowances, you may not confront these issues, but if you do, please keep that in mind. File your appeals, very important. Next slide. Okay, what you see here is the Social Security website. As you can see, any one of these sections, whether it's retirement, disability, or anything, and it'll bring you to a world of information about those topics. So when you have a little bit of time, I invite you to visit the website and visit those particular sections that you might be interested in for your particular situation. But what I want to focus your attention on right now is where you see that red arrow. It says My Social Security. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. When you click on My Social Security, it's going to go to the My Social Security website. And what this is a site within our website that allows you to create a personal account free of charge where you can access your Social Security information and you can transact business with us through this website. So when I was talking about online services, a lot of the things that people can now do online since our offices are closed for in-person visits, if you create an online account, you can transact a lot of the business. If you're getting benefits, for example, that you would walk in for example, if you need a benefit verification letter, if you create a My Social Security account, you can go on there and request one, and one is mailed to you. Gets to you within 2 or 3 days, as long as it takes the mail to get it to you. So it's a great site, whether you're getting benefits already or not. If you're not getting benefits yet, we still recommend that all workers or anyone who ever worked and paid into Social Security go in and create an account, because it allows you to check your earnings history to make sure that all those hard-earned dollars that you contributed into Social Security, you've been given credit for. Believe it or not, we spend a lot of time in our field offices trying to correct people's work history or recover people's work history. They will create a My Social Security account and realize that they're missing earnings for a couple of years. Your earnings information goes through a lot of hands. Think about it. Your employer is the one that posts that information for you. They hand you a W-2 form with your earnings information, and they hand us what should be a mirror image. Sometimes the not so reputable employers hand you a W-2 form that says you grossed $32,000 for this particular year. You look at it and you say, yep, that's right. But they hand us a W-2 with a lot less earnings for you. The reason they might do that is because, remember, your employer contributes or matches your Social Security and Medicare contributions. You contribute a certain amount and they have to match that and pay that in out of their pocket for you. The less they declare for you, the less they have to pay in for you. Don't get me wrong. This does not happen with large reputable employers, but we do see it happen sometimes with smaller, work by day type employers, or employers for which you work that say, yeah, I'll pay your Social Security taxes for you, but you're not sure. Sometimes it happens. So the way you can combat this is just check. Make sure that your earnings history looks accurate. And then going forward, just go in once a year. Make sure that last year's earnings that you made that were posted for you look accurate. And those are going to be fresh in your mind. I don't remember what I was earning 5 years ago, but I do kind of remember what I earned last year gross. So if it's a ballpark and it looks okay, I'm good. It doesn't have to be accurate to the penny, but we all can pretty much tell if there's a glaring amount that's missing. Contact us right away. These days, contact us by phone. But when our offices are open, we tell people come in with whatever proof of income you have for that particular year, if you have it, and we can try and recover it. But it's a lot easier to recover it if that was a year ago than that if that was 10 years ago. That's why we tell people give it a once over. If it looks okay, you're good. If it doesn't look okay and it was 10 years ago, let's try to recover it. But if you do that every year, chances are everything's going to be fine. And when you go to draw or request those benefits, there's not going to be any type of irregularity. You, as I mentioned, receive in that benefit check according to what you worked and paid in. So like I said, you want to make sure you've been given credit for every penny that you paid in, if possible. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. I mentioned that with my Social Security, if you're getting benefits, you can do just about everything you have to walk in for. You can even get like a replacement Medicare card. We send individuals getting benefits a Form 1099, which is proof of what we paid you. You present that to your tax preparer to see if you have to pay taxes on your Social Security benefits. Sometimes you do. You can start or change your direct deposit account. You don't have to, do anything but go in there and give us your new information. Change your address or phone number. That's if you're already getting benefits or get a benefit verification letter. The way the Social Security account works is that you have to be authenticated, meaning the system, when you create your account, will ask you some critical information that only you are likely to know. The only person that might know the same information is someone you've shared your financial information with, let's say a spouse. So a lot of times people say, well, I'm divorced, but I was married for 30 years. They're going to know all my financial information. Well, not to worry. Create your account, lock it down with the username and password. And that way nobody can get in there to look at your information or create an account for you if you haven't already done so. We recommend it as a way of not only managing your information if you're getting benefits, but knowing where you stand with Social Security if you're not already getting benefits. Click one more time for me, Ellen. There we go. So you see, if you're not getting benefits, you should be reviewing those earning statements. You can even request a duplicate Social Security card. Let's say you're going to buy a house and they've requested your Social Security card and you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know where I have it. That shouldn't be the case. I don't like to hear that. But if it is, you can go online and request a duplicate Social Security card. You can't do name changes or anything like that. It's strictly if you just need a replacement, the way your information stands right now. But that's a huge convenience because a lot of times people do misplace that card and they need a duplicate card. But keep in mind that a lot of times these entities don't need to see the actual card. They probably just need to know your number. So the My Social Security account will also give you basic estimates of benefits if you're not getting benefits already. And it will also let you know how many credits you have. A lot of times people don't realize that you only need 10 years for retirement, for example, and they think, well, I don't know how many credits I have. I might not have them yet. They could simply create a My Social Security account, and that will tell them whether they have the credits they need. And if they do, it'll give them estimates for retirement. It's a smart account also. It will let you know if you have enough credits for disability. It knows your age. It knows the credits you have because it pulls in your information that Social Security has for you or on you, and it makes all those determinations, and it tells you you have enough credits if you were to file for disability today. So it's a very, very helpful account to have, whether you're already getting benefits or if you're still working. And I urge you to create an account so that you know where you stand. If you are not able to authenticate your own identity, it might be that you're off by one numeral somewhere, either in your date of birth, or we may be off by a numeral. Maybe the first time you got a Social Security card, it was punched in by mistake. You know, we punched in the month as 5 and it should have been a 6. It could be something that sensitive, but it's that sensitive to protect you so that no one can go in there and try and create an account for you or look at your information. Okay. So if you come across that situation, we have a way where you can now put in information off your driver's license and authenticate that way. But if you can't, call our 1-800 number and they can perhaps guide you as to if there's something else you can do to get in and create your account. Okay, next slide. One other great feature that we have now is called Advanced Designation of a Representative Payee. This is another great thing that you can do through your My Social Security account. Once you've created that account, you or I could go in there, even if we're not filing for benefits anytime soon, and designate someone to be our representative payee should something happen to us where we would need to file for benefits and we do not have the capability to say who we want to be our payee. This is, I think, a great thing because in the past, you know, others have had to make that decision for us. Or we see situations where an individual has a critical condition or illness, is not able to speak up and say who they want as a representative payee. And we might have 5 family members fighting over who's going to be the representative payee. Now, we have a list or a criteria that we go by when we have to determine who that best payee is going to be. It's likely to be the person you live with who cares for you if you're in that situation, but it may not be. It may, you know, one of the things we don't go by is power of attorney, not for Social Security purposes. Power of attorney, it determines the person who is the best person to make financial decisions for you. But it's not necessarily the best person to care for you and make caregiving decisions for you. And what I mean by that is you may have power of attorney, and that might be an attorney, or that might be your brother-in-law who's an accountant, but they're not necessarily the best person to be your representative payee. That's going to be the person you live with who gives you your day-to-day care, who knows your day-to-day needs, aside and apart from your financial needs. So that's who we look to be your representative payee. So if you're filling out someone as far as your advanced designation, don't put in the person who may be or have that power of attorney. Put in the person that you feel is going to be the best suited to be your caregiver, okay? And in many cases, it is the person with power of attorney. And in that case, great, fine, no problem, but does not have to be, okay? And for us, people come in and say, oh, well, I have power of attorney. That doesn't mean a whole lot. It bears some weight, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's who we're going to choose, okay? So adults, go in and do your advanced designation. If there is a case where there isn't an advanced designation and the person needs a representative payee, we're going to look to your doctors to first of all say that you need a representative payee. It's not just a designation of convenience. A lot of people say, oh, I want my daughter to be my representative payee because it's hard for me to get out and go to the bank. That might be true, but you still have the capacity to direct that individual as to how you want your money spent and what you want done with your money. We want to keep that power with the beneficiary as much as possible and for as long as possible. Okay. Next slide, please. All right. So with that, if you are the representative payee, you're going to receive the person's benefits in your name or under your name in a bank account that's under your name. What we recommend is that the bank account be put in your and the recipient's name with you as the person who transacts business. For example, it may read John Doe for Jane Doe, or John Doe agent for John Doe. It can read as a joint bank account too, but the reason we discourage that is that if you don't share a financial, if you're not a financial unit with that person, you don't want your Social Security benefits showing up under that joint account holder's Social Security number as a resource to them, for example. So that's why you can designate it, and your bank can work with you. They know about all this and how it works, and they can help you designate it if you do need to become a rep payee or if you need a representative payee, so that you're on there as an agent and not as owning half of that account. Okay. But if you are, for example, a spouse, no harm done if you do have a joint bank account. Okay. Next slide, please. I already mentioned about power of attorney, so go ahead and let's go through that one. Next slide. Very good. If you do need a payee, a lot of times we find out that a beneficiary needs a payee because their loved ones will call and say, look, they've had this diagnosis, or look, they've had, another condition has come about where they can no longer manage their benefits. That's how we find out about it. And we'll say, okay, are they still living with you, the spouse, or are they still living with you, the daughter? And that's who we're going to approach to see if that's the best payee for the individual. So we offer some level of protection in determining who the best, in offering who we think the best payee is. We ultimately have final say-so. Believe it or not, sometimes we do have a number of relatives that are arguing as to who needs to be the representative payee for an individual. And in that case, we do some homework and we determine who we think is the best payee for the individual. A medical professional can determine that a person needs a payee. For example, if someone alleges that you need a payee, but you don't have one at present, we will need your doctor to complete a form letting us know that, yes, that person is right in saying that you may need a representative payee to help you manage your benefits. So it could come about a couple of different ways. Next slide. So it could be an individual, your caretaker, a loved one. It could be an agency. For example, a lot of nursing homes can be representative payees for their residents. It could be an organization. We have a number of organizations that we work with. They may be, for example, a mental health agency. It may be a group home type of agency that is caring for a number of young adults who need representative payees, and they're reputable organizations that we have investigated, that have their taxpayer ID numbers, and they're legitimate. We will pay them as a representative payee, and they allocate funds for that individual on a monthly basis. It could be any type of institution. Any of those are good, but once again, Social Security is very discerning as to who applies and who is approved. Next slide, please. So I mentioned this briefly already. It's usually going to be the person with whom the recipient lives, who sees to the needs of that individual. In some cases, it can be an organization or an institution, but we have final say-so. Next slide. And basically, we just want to make sure that the representative payee is making sure that the recipient's basic needs of food, shelter, clothing are being met. We do send representative payees a form on a yearly basis, which is what we call an accounting form, which asks, generally speaking, how much of that $700 that we sent is being spent on food, and how much of it is being spent on shelter needs, and how much is spent on clothing. It's pretty much half is on food, another percentage is on medical care, and the rest is on personal needs. We're not looking to see how you spent every penny, but we're looking to see that it's been spent in a reasonable way. Sometimes we get these forms back and an individual reports that they spent 90% on personal needs and 10% on food and clothing. That tells us something's up there. There's usually not a big problem, but it's our way of kind of keeping tabs on how people are answering these types of questions. And it's a signed statement by the representative payee that they can be held liable for if they have misused the money. A lot of times they will tell us that they're using it for food and shelter and it looks fine, and we keep the person as payee, but then we get a phone call from a third party saying the recipient has no food, has no clothing. Well, that signed statement is proof against that representative payee that they misused the funds. They were alleging one thing and they did something else with the money. So that's basically the need for it. People who are caring for their spouse in their own home don't get those on a regular basis. People caring for their children in their home do not get those often. It's mainly organizations and third parties that get those forms that we like to check up on a little bit more. Okay, next slide. This is the homepage for Social Security. Again, let's go ahead and go on. I wanted to show you that there You can scroll to the very bottom of our homepage where you see Contact Us, click on that icon, and then it's going to bring you to another location that's called Office Locator. If you put in your zip code, it's going to give you the phone number, the direct phone number to your local Social Security office. So if you have a question or anything that you need transacted while our offices are closed for in-person visits, this is your go-to. Go to your office locator, put in your zip code, and it's going to give you the direct phone number to your local office, and you will speak to your local representatives there with any issues you have. I invite you to use our online services, but if you don't like to use online services, or if it's something that's not offered on our online services for you to transact, by all means, please use our office locator to find that local field office number. Okay, next slide. Just want to assure you that Social Security is with you through life's journey. And with our next slide, please. I'll let you ask me some questions. How's that?
Hey, Maria, great. Wonderful job. Wonderful job. A lot of great information. And you know, Bill Withers had a song, I can see clearly now. That's how I feel about Social Security. I can see clearly now.
Wonderful.
Great presentation. We do have a few questions for you, Maria.
My pleasure.
Okay, the first one, what would be some of the reasons a person diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's get denied?
Okay. The first thing that comes to mind is that maybe the individual is still able to work and is still working. Okay. If they are over that gross of a little over $1,200, that might be a technical reason why. Social Security also looks at the degree to which the condition is affecting the individual. Let me give you an example. Sometimes someone will ask, well, is asthma a qualifying condition? And the answer is, could be. But the determining factor is that person able to still hold a job with that asthma condition? In other words, what kind of job do they have? Does it affect their ability to breathe? Does it hinder that condition that they already have? Or is it controlled with medication and they're still able to do that job? So it's not so much the diagnosis as the degree to which the person's abilities are affected by the condition. So to answer your question, if we have someone with early onset, but they are still able to work and they're taking medication, however, the medication is keeping them at a level where they're able to conduct that job that they're performing, maybe that could be a reason for it. This, however, if it's a dementia-related condition, it's the perfect reason to file your appeal. Because the condition may progress slowly, may progress rapidly, we don't know. But you're protecting your initial application date should you be paid some back pay. And what's going to happen when you file that appeal, if it's medically related, in other words, it's not the situation where you're earning over that substantial gainful limit. That's pretty cut and dry. But if they're saying we don't think your condition sufficiently keeps you from performing any type of work, if you disagree with that, file your appeal. Okay? That's my best answer to that.
Thank you, Maria. And we have one more question. Would you advise a person with Alzheimer's disease diagnosis to apply for disability in advance? And how could that family prepare well for receiving any benefits that are due to the affected individual?
Well, unfortunately, you can't file in advance because it might be a situation like the one we just spoke about, where the condition exists, but it's not sufficiently hindering the person to the point where they cannot work. Okay. It doesn't have to be that the person was working and is no longer able to work. It could be someone that wasn't working to begin with. Okay. But Social Security might say, because Social Security is intended to replace income that the person had while working, could they work if they were to get a job? And if the answer, according to our criteria, is possibly, they may still be able to do some type of work, even if it's maybe not the intricate type of work they were doing. And then we're getting into some tricky territory there, because we'd still have to consider the person's age, education, work experience. You know, we can't very well tell someone that wasn't able to get past a sixth grade education that they could do certain types of job. Okay. So all of that is taken into account, but the determination is going to be made at the point at which you file for the individual. So if they're not meeting, that strict criteria right then and there, they're not going to be approved. You could file your appeals, but if it's not something that needs to progress in order to be approved, they're still only going to pay back to that initial till the point at which they feel it started to meet the criteria. But you could file today and not be approved, and even if you didn't file your appeals, if you're out of your appeal period, you could file again if you know that their condition has progressed to the point where you feel like, yeah, this is at a point now where they can't work, even though, yeah, maybe they could have continued to work or do some type of work. So there's nothing saying that because you filed and didn't file an appeal, or you filed already twice this year and were denied, that you can't file again. Absolutely no reason. Okay.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question somewhat.
Yes. Thank you, Maria. I think that's it for our questions. Again, thank you so much, Maria, for another wonderful presentation. She's been a huge supporter of financial literacy for several years now, and I'm so happy to have someone so knowledgeable about Social Security, someone that I could email if I have a question. I can send her an email, she's going to answer.
Absolutely.
So we appreciate you taking the time out and sharing all of your experience and your knowledge with us. And so that will conclude our presentation, our workshop for today. I do have some very quick announcements. The first one, don't forget that we are hosting our virtual memory screenings on Friday the 13th. If you dare, get your memory screen and call the office and make an appointment, because I think we have a few slots left. And then November the 20th, which is the Friday after, we will be hosting virtual memory screenings from 9 to 12 by appointment only. Also on November the 19th, we are hosting our Q&A panel of experts that will be facilitated by Gina Rossi. And so again, our guest panelists include Dr. Jeffrey Keller from Pennington Biomedical Research Center, Sergeant Elvin Howard from the East Baton Rouge Police Department, Paula Oder of Lineage Law, former caregiver and education committee member Terry Robillard, and then current caregiver and board member of Alzheimer's Services, John McClellan. And we will have our final financial literacy workshop next Tuesday at 12 o'clock. And we have the wonderful Miss Linda Melanson of for Legacy, Estate Planning and Elder Law. And she will be doing a presentation on estate planning. So I hope to see you there. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Maria. You're wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.